We, the good guys who want to help you, versus them, the bad guys who want to hurt you.
Yes.
Undoubtedly, this us versus them narrative doesn't just exist.
And guess what? If I can demonstrate that I'm helping you, then I'm not lying to you. If I can demonstrate that they're hurting you, then I'm not lying to you, okay? So as a progressive, as somebody on the left, I use the word fascist a lot. Now, what do I mean when I say fascist? Basically, I'm invoking an idea of somebody who is extraordinarily exclusive to the point that they have an in-group and they have an out-group, okay? They're part of their own in-group, which is comprised of usually traits that you can't really control that much, whether that be your skin color, your weight. For me particularly, it was like weight. Even though you have some level of control over that, I still count it. Your sex, your gender, things like that, right? And then your out group is everybody that is not a part of that group or maybe doesn't ascribe to your beliefs, right? That's everybody outside of your group. And the goal of fascism is essentially to purge the outside group, purge them or subjugate them. That's essentially what fascism is. So if you believe in an ideology sort of like that, like if you believe in expelling, illegal immigrants or whatever from the country, just like, wholesale, get rid of all of them, you're probably a fascist. So that's what I mean when I say it. And I try to use it carefully, although I sometimes slip up and call people fascist when they may not be, or say that something's fasci, like indicative of being a fascist. It gets a little messy. I'll admit that. But this person, Lavender, who I've never heard of before today, thinks that the left uses the label far too often. The fascist card. Why does the left label opponents as fascists? So I'm going to take a look at what they think about this situation. And I'm sure that we will come to some kind of understanding of some sort. I don't know. And yeah, there was a baby behind me. There was a little kitty baby. All right, so the segments we have are introduction, the manipulation of definitions. We're going to get a lot of trans stuff in that segment. The hidden enemy, the need for a boogeyman, which, where did it go? Oh yeah, the need for a boogeyman. The Nazi boogeyman. Yes. Yes, the boogeyman of the Nazis. Yes, such a boogeyman. And then the conclusion. All right, let's go.
This video has been brought to you by the generous channel members and lads over at Patreon. Thank you all for supporting me and my content.
Oh boy. No copyright, please.
Being an individual who has actively engaged in discussing political and historical discourse long before my YouTube era...
We're opening up on Stark Tower here. We're about to get a look into what the Hulk has been up to.
I have had the opportunity to encounter and engage in conversations with numerous individuals who align themselves with a diverse range of political ideologies.
Oh yes, I'm sure that you've meaningfully engaged with people who have rose icons and the comrade icon, the hammer sickle. What is this one? This looks fashy as shit.
In the process, I have come across
Who are we watching? Their name is Lavender with 19.3k subscribers.
Intriguing and varied interpretations of historical events and conflicts that have piqued my curiosity and enriched my understanding of the world around us. Since I identify myself as right-wing, I have obviously had many clashes with those that identify as left-wing and progressive. And if you have ever engaged with these people as much as I have, you would have more than likely been called the infamous F-word by them.
No, not... Oh, that word. Never mind.
Fascist. This strategy by the left to label everyone on the right as a fascist and Nazi is not uncommon. Actually, it is extremely prevalent among these people, and many famous left-wing content creators on YouTube
I know these guys!
Do love using the F-word a lot when discussing their opponents. And the further left you go, towards the more radical sides like communism, you will see that their followers are even more trigger-happy with that term. I myself have seen so many communists unironically calling social democrats and even liberals as fascists.
Okay, this part actually is true. Communists will call anybody a fascist. I've been called a fascist by people with the hammer sickle icon. I'm sorry. Hammer sickle icon people are wild. Not all of them, but certainly many of them.
Or simply fascists in disguise. Of course, anyone who is even a little bit mature in political discourse can see how ludicrous it is to go around and label everyone who disagrees with you a fascist. But despite it being so obvious, the question comes up. Why exactly is the strategy so popular? What exactly makes it so effective? And why is the left so keen on preserving it?
Well, I don't think it's popular as much as it is just usually accurate. Like if you have to sit here and deny that you're a fascist, like in any reasonable capacity, then you probably are one. You know what I mean? Like if somebody were to call me a fascist, I would just like and walk away. Like there's nothing you can point to for me to say that I'm a fascist. Zero. And I defy anybody to prove me otherwise.
These
don't
are the
otherwise.
questions
do
I
that.
hope to answer today. Why does the left love calling everyone on the right fascist so much? And the answer to this may not be as straightforward
Wait. Why is this building made of USB ports? This is some of the ugliest construction I've ever seen on architecture ever.
And the answer to this may not be as straightforward as one may think. Every human being on planet Earth has their own opinions and—
Okay, I'm making a bet. I will donate $50. I'll do it anyway. You know what? Actually, no. We'll make it count. I'll donate $50 to the Trevor Foundation if by the 10-minute mark he has not said, or we'll call it this segment. He does not say anything about trans people.
And is entitled to them. And more importantly,
$50.
Humans should have the right to talk about their opinions openly. And this is the beauty of freedom of speech. You have the full right to express your opinions and try to convince people why your opinion is correct.
Okay.
The upside of freedom of speech is not
If my opinion is I should be allowed to murder people, I don't want people saying that.
only that people can say what they want
There's some
without
opinions that are not worth
consequences,
voicing.
but also that it will lead to certain ideas being understood more. Let's say, for example, you have your own show where you push a certain narrative and idea, like that all French people eat frogs, and you make several points about your narrative and back it up with evidence. And then someone else comes along on another show and challenges your idea, saying how French people don't eat frogs, and that person brings their own
They eat snails, dipshits. They're known for eating snails.
evidence. And then you, the listener of both shows, come to your own conclusion after hearing both sides of the argument. Do French people eat frogs or do they not? That is up for you to decide.
They also eat frog legs? No, they eat snails! And baguettes. Sometimes you take a little nibble off the Eiffel Tower.
And for the sake of argument, let's say you adopt the idea that French people don't eat
Like a gingerbread house.
frogs, and then you start developing your own ideas and arguments, even perhaps coming across new evidence that proves your point. And then
I've been to France? Then I can't trust you! What do you mean you've been to France? Oh, that's supposed to help your case? Oh, you've been indoctrinated by the French, dumbass. You're lying to me.
you start spreading
You're
your
programmed.
thoughts
Nope,
around,
don't trust you.
and thus you are
Never go to
contributing
France.
to this discussion. And the same
They
thing
eat
can be
snails
applied
there.
to people who do believe French people eat frogs.
I am French? Oh my god.
But
I'm a
one
French
thing is
moderator.
for certain,
We'll take care of that
you
after.
will in the end understand the topic better. By going back and forth with debates, discussions, writing books, those involved with this topic will tend to
Yeah, if they're like intelligent debates, the debates I have people advocating for shit like that's not broadening my mental horizons. That's just beating my head over a brick in Minecraft.
understand it more by listening to both sides of the argument, and while it can sometimes convince people to switch sides, sometimes it can even lead to
Good, you're
people
Danish,
finding
good.
flaws and pointing them out. With every point a new argument brought up, it opens the possibility for the opposing side to make a response to it and come up with their own argument against it. Or at least, that's how it should be working. Because now,
boy.
let's go back to my example. You have a show where you push the narrative that French people eat frogs, but suddenly there is no other side to the argument. It either does not exist or the one who is making it is so irrelevant and is not allowed to push it to the broader public like you are.
Yeah, if it's really super harmful, then you shouldn't be allowed to, frankly. Like, I know that we have to have a conversation about what is harmful and what's not, but I would say that the eradication of a group of people like trans people is indeed pretty harmful. Also, I haven't forgotten, we're still looking for the manipulation of definitions. We're looking for trans people.
Yeah, that is where the problem starts. With there practically being no real other side to the argument, people will generally only hear that one
By the way, just want to say, horrific optics here. Horrific optics.
side of it and nothing else. However, with this addition of there not being any real opposition to the idea, people can start manipulating it by spreading outright lies and saying that the other side believes in things they actually don't. But since there is no real or open opposition about it from the other side, this narrative will get accepted. And we have seen this plenty of times in
Okay, but what if it's true? Have you considered that? What if the narrative is true? You're using ridiculous examples, but I'd like to use a real one, you know? Use a real example.
Totalitarian systems throughout history, censoring and banning the thoughts and ideas of anything they deem to oppose their own narrative, and making sure that the people do not learn about them, but rather just focus on their own ideologies. But then there are times where the idea isn't directly banned, but it is heavily suppressed, and I could not give a better example of this than the infamous Red Scare in the United States.
Oh, interesting.
The Red Scare, also sometimes called McCarthyism after US Senator Joseph McCarthy, who was spearheading this idea, advocated the idea that communism was an evil force that had infiltrated the United States.
So I think that he's doing this just to be subversive, like, oh, you would not have expected. You wouldn't have expected a conservative to go on the defense for the USSR, now would you have? That certainly never happens ever, but if it did, I think that we'd call them tankies.
How communism was going to ruin America and kill everyone, how being communist was anti-American, and so on. Classic propaganda tactics. Now, despite myself being anti-communist, I have to admit that the Red Scare really did nothing positively. Worst of all, the term communist in the US at the time was more used as a slander tool than an actual identification of someone belonging to the communist ideology. US politicians would very commonly label critics, journalists, and anyone else a communist, and considering the reputation communism had, it had the possibility of ruining someone's career. If you would
They're literally doing that now, by the way. Like, conservatives are doing that now. We are just doing the Red Scare over again. Yeah.
Ask a normal American teenager around that time period about communism, they would always say that communism is bad, communism is evil. But how many of them would actually give you a proper definition on what communism actually was or why it was evil? Truth be told, the vast majority of Americans, despite knowing and seeing communism as bad, they could never properly identify or define it, because the Red Scare made sure to be as vague about communism as possible, and as said, completely made stuff up with just a little bit of truth sprinkled in there. The Communist Party of the United States, however, was not banned and they were still accepting memberships, but due to the political climate, they were barred from entering anything mainstream or even giving them a platform to speak from. Despite their technically being in opposition, they had practically no voice, being suppressed at every turn, and Americans were being told to stay away from them and not fall for their communist lies. Obviously today—
Yeah. But okay, so he's going to try to connect this to like being a conservative and just trying to do bigotry, right? Like he's going to be like, you can't just say 1350 or whatever it is. I think it's 1350. You can't just say it. You can't say that anymore. If you get looks at you when you just point out the fact that, like, you know, the incorrect fact, by the way, that 13% of the population, black people, commit 50% of the crime. You get people looking at you all weird and funny when you just say things like that. Yeah, you do. You should, okay? Because why are you saying that? Because if you were honest, all right, you would just say that, like, oh, black people commit more crime. Like, black people are more prone to commit more crime, right? Like, you would just say it. You would just say the quiet part out loud. But you're not being honest. You're trying to use stats and whatever else, and you're trying to twist it into your little narrative.
Today in America, the Red Scare is over. People are more quote-unquote informed about communism than ever, and so it managed to relatively die down. But this is what I was talking about, because there was—
I'm getting a little scared he's not going to say anything about trans people. But like in a section called the manipulation of definitions about like from a conservative, I could have sworn they would have gone, what is a woman? You know what I mean? But we'll see.
Practically no opposition from actual communists in the United States and abroad. Senator McCarthy and other US politicians changed the meaning of what it meant to be a communist at their own will. And since their voice was the dominant and only one, people were buying into everything they said and believed it. By being the only voice without opposition, one could define communism as really whatever they wanted. So why am I exactly talking about this? What is my point? Well, if you take everything about the Red Scare / McCarthyism and change the word communism into fascism, you will start noticing how things are.
Fascists are hiding among us. They are. Fascists are trying to take over. They are. Anyone right-wing is actually fascist. Not quite. Not quite. Usually they're fascist aligned or fascist allowing or voting for fascists, but not everybody who's right-wing is a fascist. People trying to criticize us are fascists. Not always. This seems embellished. If you do not stand with us, you are a fascist. That depends. If you don't stand with me on liberation for queer people, then yeah, I'm going to call you a fascist, and I feel like that's fair.
Are getting a little too similar. It's almost like the left adopted the ideas of McCarthyism and made their own version.
You can also do this with like any word that you want. It's worth pointing out, like centrists. Anyone centrist is actually, I don't know, a cheese eater. Cheese eaters are hiding among us. Cheese eaters are trying to take over. People trying to criticize us are cheese eaters. You're just a bunch of filthy, disgusting cheese eaters. Yeah, it's just word games. Like, I don't know, like it doesn't mean anything.
By directing it towards the right. Now, am I trying to defend fascism with this? Of course not. Being a monarchist, I have my fair share of disagreements and criticisms of fascist doctrine. But this is no real way to learn about ideologies. If you want to learn about fascism and what fascists actually believe in, then go pick up a book from fascist thinkers and start reading and making your own conclusions.
But they don't call themselves fascists. Fascists never call themselves fascists. You know what communists do? They call themselves communists. You know why? Because it turns out communism at its roots is really not that bad of an ideology. Fascism, as far as it exists as a single ideology, which it's more like a loose mesh of disgusting, perverted pieces of ideology that are all like pushed together into this amalgamated piece of shit. They don't admit it. They don't admit it. Okay, they don't call themselves fascists unless you're Big Papa fascist, but even then it's tongue-in-cheek, right? Like you have to say, oh, I'm not really a fascist. The left is really the fascist. They're the fascists. When did communists ever say they're the real communists? I'm just saying. It seems kind of dishonest.
View to it and criticize it.
So that's already a false equivalency.
That is exactly the issue. The left isn't even properly criticizing fascist thought. When they say they are criticizing fascism, what they truly mean is they don't like Trump or any group that's just a bit to the right.
Trump is a fascist. Trump is literally on record saying, he's on record saying that he will be a dictator the first day in office. That is fascism.
I have yet to see, for example, any kind of leftist breaking down Giovanni Gentile's essays on fascism and go over each chapter, properly understand.
He said you didn't read enough theory. Oh no. He said he's theory, what is it called? He's theory trolling, like concern trolling for theory.
What he is trying to say and properly applying criticism to
Maybe he is a communist.
But obviously that is too much work. My point is, by taking the term fascist, the left is able to twist and change the meaning of fascism to whatever they want. Thanks to the fact that the opposition doesn't even exist.
Wait, does this count? She has a trans button. I don't think this counts.
Or is never heard. And the average Joe will most likely...
Owning and shooting an assault rifle is fascism? Let me tell you something. This person probably owns more guns than most people. Okay? Probably owns more guns than the average American.
Never even question it. They themselves...
Where's the trans button? It was, this button right here.
Even question it. They themselves don't even know or can properly define what fascism is. And in true
That's French button. Is it? It looks pink, white, and blue. But if you say it's French, then fine.
And exist or is never heard.
They do have a gay button. Yeah, they have a gay button. Like I thought it was trans-colored.
Joe will most likely never even question it. They themselves don't even know or can properly define what fascism is.
I already did at the beginning.
And in true Red Scare fashion, instead use it as a giant slander tool to bring down their opponents without engaging in an actual debate.
Okay, but if it's that obvious, then people should be able to see through it, right? Like you shouldn't have to make this whole video about, well, they only call me a fascist because of things and stuff. Like people will figure it out. They'll see through it.
Exactly makes this approach so effective.
It's not that simple.
We'll get back to the video in just a second. Let's hear from today's sponsor at...
God damn it, I was wrong. Okay, after the segment's over, I'll donate $50 to the Trevor Foundation.
If we look at the state of politics in the vast majority of countries, specifically the West, we will see that fascism is practically a dead ideology. When I say that, I don't mean
What?
that they do not exist. There are still many
Yes,
organizations
we're at the end of
and
history,
groups
boys.
that identify as fascist, and undoubtedly, there are many people who believe in it.
Who identifies as fascist? I'm interested in this.
But what I mean is that fascism has no actual political power, and has barely, if any, influence in
Oh, for
any
sure.
government of a developed
sure.
nation. This has not, however, stopped leftists from calling many mainstream
Yeah, they haven't tried to like implement laws against specific groups of people based on characteristics or traits that are entirely outside of their control. They haven't done anything like that. They haven't like opened concentration camps for people who are of a different race, right? They haven't done any of that in the United States. That hasn't happened.
right-wing
Good
parties and figures as fascist, like Donald Trump and the Republican Party, the AfD in Germany, Marine Le Pen, and the list goes on.
I don't know about the AfD. I've heard of them. I think they're fascist, and Trump is absolutely fascist without question.
Think of pretty much any public
And I don't know
right-wing
that lady.
figure, and I can tell you that they had definitely been called fascists once or twice.
And
Since the
justifiably
definition
so.
of fascism has been completely distorted to be nothing more than a slander term,
Why don't you define
it's
it
very
then?
easy to label them
He hasn't even defined it yet, by the way. I don't think he's defined fascism at all yet. Has
all
he?
as fascist the moment there is even a shred of quote-unquote similarity between them. Like, for example, standing on a balcony. The reason why this strategy
As many people have pointed out, Trump's planned balcony address from the White House directly emulates Mussolini. I think that's stupid, but you know what else is stupid? People kept comparing Biden right here to Hitler. Oh god. They kept saying that he looked like a fascist. They were like posting this on Twitter all the time saying that like, here, let me open a new tab so you guys can see it. They were posting this picture on Twitter all the time being like, look at him. He's got the red lights behind him and he looks evil. He looks evil. He looks like Hitler. He looks like Hitler. He looks like Hitler. Like, that was all over the place. Go look it up if you don't believe me.
on a balcony. The reason
Both
why
sides do
this
that.
strategy is so effective is because it plays with the anxieties of people, saying how there is a hidden enemy among them, and how fascism is about to jump out at any second and take over. Everyone knows that
It already
fascism
has.
is bad, and when you start
There are trans people right now who cannot access medical care. That's an element of fascism.
saying that Trump is a fascist,
There are concentration camps on the border open right now, filled with children and adults alike who don't have the proper provisions that they need simply to survive reasonably. That's an element of fascism.
they will start thinking that Trump is gonna
We're aiding and abetting a genocide over in Israel. That's fascism.
do something on the scale of Adolf Hitler. I would say there are 5 big
Like a
reasons
genocide.
why this strategy of an unseen enemy lurking in the shadows is efficient to fool people.
Oh, yes,
Number
unseen.
1, primal fear and survival instincts. Humans have evolved to
Oh,
be
come
highly
on.
sensitive to threats, especially those that are not easily identifiable or tangible. This primal fear and survival instinct
Yeah, and that's what fascists use. This is just projection. Fascism is all about projection, by the way.
can be easily triggered by the idea of an unseen enemy lurking among the population. In this
hid the enemy
case,
in your
the
dad.
notion
Shut
of
up.
fascists lurking among
That's
us
disgusting.
tapped into this instinctual fear, making people more susceptible to
I'm on a 3-year waiting list that's only getting longer. Jesus, dude. That is awful. I'm sorry.
accept the idea without demanding concrete evidence. Number 2, confirmation bias and groupthink. Once fears
Something
are
that
stoked, people tend
famously-
to interpret ambiguous
He
information
would never be part of that.
in a way that confirms their pre-existing beliefs. This is known as confirmation bias. In this context, those who were already predisposed to believing in the existence of fascists in the government were more likely to interpret any suspicious behavior or association as evidence. Additionally,
what?
were
Sorry.
already predisposed to believing in the existence of fascists in the
Those are
government
predisposed.
were more likely to interpret any suspicious behavior or association as evidence. Additionally,
Like what? Like what? Give me something to work with here. You've given me nothing. All you've done is like make comparisons and vague gestures at things, but you've not actually focused in on anything. I'm on the 3-year waiting list, which is actually a 5+ year waiting list. Jesus Christ.
the fear-driven environment encouraged groupthink, where individuals were more inclined to adopt the prevailing beliefs of the larger society,
Everyone is
reinforcing their
susceptible to
idea
that.
further.
No, everybody's susceptible to that, including this guy, by the way. Okay? Like, he is not an exception.
Number 3, cognitive
too.
dissonance and simplification. This has created a cognitive dissonance, a state of psychological discomfort arising from holding contradictory beliefs or ideas. To alleviate this discomfort, people might simplify complex situations and accept black and white explanations, such as the notion that anyone with right-wing or nationalist views must be a fascist. Simplification allowed people to mix.
Okay, but you haven't explained how you're not yet. Like, you haven't given specific accusations that have been hurled at you and then disarmed them. Like, you haven't been able to do that.
Sense of a complex world and reinforce the beliefs in the widespread presence of fascism today. Number 4, influence of authority figures.
Wait, this is the picture. This is it. How is he actually using this picture when he made that point before? He should know, of all people, that he's literally doing the thing. He's doing the thing. He's doing the thing that he said that his opposition was doing. He's doing the thing. Are you serious? Okay, dude. Okay.
Political leaders and other authority figures can play a crucial role in shaping public opinion around these issues, whether it be a prominent YouTuber, real-life activist,
it's underhanded, but he's doing
or organization. When such claims come from authoritative sources, people may be more inclined to accept them without questioning, especially if doing so aligns with their existing
Okay, then why did people not accept Trump without questioning? Interesting.
fears and biases.
And also, people on the left question Biden all the time. It's like these people live in their own alternate reality where, like, there are no progressives or leftists or anybody who dislikes Biden or any of his policies, when that's simply not the case. Most of the progressive people that I'm associated with, at least, and even some Democrats now, like liberals, are saying, hey, Biden, maybe it's a bad idea to aid and abet a genocide. Maybe we should actually forgive some student loans. You know, like, maybe that'd be a good idea. Maybe we should legalize weed. You know, like, we actually push our leaders. Look at his approval rating. Look, this is from before October, right? When the Hamas attacks happened, and then the Hamas attacks happened, and then it started going down, and it's still on it's still in the decline approval rating. Okay, so this is bullshit. The left actually holds their leaders to account. The right does not. You gobble their shit up. All right, I don't want to hear it.
And finally, number 5, social and peer pressure. The fear of being labeled as
You should be socially and peer pressured out of fascism. Okay. And into socialism. You should. Peer pressure. Go ahead. No, go pressure your peers to be socialists. Go do that.
a fascist sympathizer or soft on fascism can contribute to social pressure to conform. People may be afraid of these consequences of being seen as insufficiently committed to the cause of rooting out fascism, which leads them to buy into this narrative to demonstrate their loyalty and avoid suspicion. For example, in Austria, just being under suspicion of having Nazi sympathies can lead to your life getting ruined and fired from your job.
I mean, I don't know about suspicion, but it's certainly worth looking into. Like, if you're a person who believes in Nazi ideology, then yeah, you should be ostracized until you fix it. I don't think it should be permanent, but until you fix it, you should be ostracized.
And a normal man obviously does not want to risk
that. It's called living in a civilized society.
In my personal opinion, I believe the 5th reason, social and peer pressure, is the biggest reason why people are adopting this narrative. With this, I would like to introduce you all to Solomon Asch, a psychologist who pioneered social psychology. During his lifetime, he had run a few interesting experiments called the Asch conformity experiments. This is how the experiments...
Oh, wait, I remember these experiments. So what he's going to basically describe is, and I'll describe it before he does. Okay, so Sheriff's experiment is the one I was thinking of. Sheriff's conformity experiment was that there was no correct answer to the ambiguous autokinetic experiment. How can we be sure that a person conformed when there was no correct answer? Asch, 1951, devised what is now regarded as a classic experiment in social psychology whereby there was an obvious answer to a line judgment task. If the participant gave an incorrect answer, it would be clear that this was due to group pressure. Okay, so this is not the one I was thinking of. The one I was thinking of was about getting somebody to, like, shock somebody on the other side of a curtain that you couldn't see, right? And they were convincing you that, like, no, you're not hurting that person, you're not hurting that person. And they weren't actually shocking anybody, mind you, but they were convinced that they were shocking somebody. And so they just kept, like, upping the dial, because the experimenters were telling them to. And that's considered a classic in how, like, fascism is proliferated. But anyway, experimental procedure. Asch used a lab experiment to study conformity, whereby 50 male students from Swarthmore College in the USA participated in a, quote, vision test. Using a line judgment task, Asch put a naive participant in a room with 7 Confederates/stooges. Okay, that's kind of a weird word to use, but I get it. The Confederates had agreed in advance what their responses would be when presented with the line task. The real participant did not know this and was led to believe that the other 7 Confederate stooges were also real participants like themselves. Each person in the room had to state aloud which comparison line, A, B, or C, was most like the target line. The answer was always obvious. The real participant sat at the end of the row and gave his or her answer last. At the start, all participants, including the Confederates, gave correct answers. However, after a few rounds, the Confederates started to provide unanimously incorrect answers. Wow. There were 18 trials in total, and the Confederates gave the wrong answer on 12. Ash was interested to see if the real participant would conform to the majority view. Ash's experiment also had a control condition where there were no Confederates, only a real participant. Ash measured the number of times each participant conformed to the majority view. This is a very good experiment. On average, about 1/3, 32%, who were placed in this situation went along and conformed with the clearly incorrect majority on the critical trials. Over the 12 critical trials, about 75% of participants conformed at least once, and 25% of participants never conformed. In the control group, with no pressure to conform to Confederates, less than 1% of the participants gave the wrong answer. Yeah, so basically this experiment is showing you guys that groupthink and group mentality. You know another great video, actually? Let me show you.
To answer that question, we set up a hidden camera experiment to see if this one would stand up at the sound of this tone, simply because everyone else is. You might be thinking you'd never go along with this. Or would you?
This experiment wasn't valid, really? I'm watching it anyway.
After just 3
it still proves
beats,
my point, and it's still funny.
Why she's doing it, this woman is now conforming perfectly to the group.
It proves the same point.
But what happens if we take the group away?
Elaine, please.
Please look up the follow-up. Fine. No fun allowed. Karen Dave said no fun allowed. No fun allowed. No fun, no fun, no fun allowed. No fun. Ruining the fun. The waiting room experiment is fine. Oh, this one's fine. Okay, never mind. This one's not as fun. So this one, the follow-up to that experiment. Okay, here, let's finish the fun one.
Swen.
Not that. That's not fun. That's fun.
Okay, now she's alone.
Sorry I accused you of being no fun.
And nobody is watching her, except our hidden cameras. What do you think she'll do?
Let's go! Stand up, lady. Buzzer set to stand up.
Without them
Get your ass out of that chair, just like me.
Now, watch what happens when we introduce another outsider who
what's
doesn't
gonna
know
happen?
the rules.
Have a seat, and they'll be out in just a couple minutes. Thanks
Who's
so
to
much.
say? It's so awkward. It's so awkward.
Everybody was doing it, so I thought I was supposed to.
Think she'll teach the new guy what to do?
It kind of looks staged.
We kept the cameras rolling as more unsuspecting
It looks a
patients
little
arrived.
staged, but I still think it's funny. Let me believe. Okay. You guys get the idea. They're probably playing copyright music now, but you guys get the idea. It's very funny. But yeah, let's look up what's going on with this Ash. Follow-ups to the Ash experiment showed that the number of dissenting voices made a difference to the results, as did the forcefulness of the Confederates. Oh! One incorrect Confederate made little difference to the answers, but the influence steadily increased if 2 or 3 people disagreed. Okay, can you link what you're talking about? Because that still doesn't were they being manipulated? Here, let's look at the Wikipedia article. Selective representation. Ash's 1956 report emphasized the predominance of independence over yielding, saying the facts were being judged were, under the circumstances, the most decisive. However, a 1990 survey of U.S. social psychology textbooks found that most ignored independence, instead reported a misleading summary of the results as reflecting complete power of the situation to produce conformity of behavior and belief. Okay, so basically textbooks were saying that this experiment is taken out of context and that you can actually just brainwash people into believing different things. A 2015 survey found no change, with just one of 20 major texts reporting that the most participant responses defied majority opinion. Most participant responses defied majority opinion. Oh, okay. So actually most people didn't conform. Okay. No text mentioned that 95% of subjects defied the majority at least. Oh, never mind. I read it wrong. There's a big difference between groupthink and actually being pressured. What we don't know is how many people they had to go through to get that result. It can't be replicated. Why can't it be replicated? Oh, because like it's already been, like we've been there, done that. Well, you could still replicate it. You could still find people who don't know about the study. It's not like I knew about it. Let's keep going with the video. We've trailed off enough.
There would be 10 participants.
Okay.
One participant would be a
So we've got an idea of what we're
one,
talking about here.
while the other 9
I do accept the idea, by the way. I accept the idea that you can manipulate somebody using peer pressure. That's what he's getting at here, is just the peer pressure thing. The experiment itself is not that important.
participants were fake ones, decoys intentionally planted for the sake of the experiment, and their task would be a very simple one. They were presented with 3 lines, and they all had to decide together on which line was the longest. Simple enough, right? But here is where it gets interesting. Those 9 fake participants would intentionally agree that, for example, line C is the longest instead of the obvious line B. And Ash would discover that the one genuine participant would agree with the group 40 to 50% of the time, despite it being plainly obvious that the other line was the longest one. Up to 75% of
There is something to be said for, like, you know, variations on how many people agreed, because if everybody's saying the wrong one all the time, then that's going to look suspicious.
participants conform to an obvious lie at least once. This is because of social pressure. If 9 people are telling you X
Wait, the guy who wasn't part of it went with the group? Yeah.
is true and not Y, despite Y being very clearly the correct answer, people will cave to them and accept that X is true. Even Ash
unclear how many
himself would
questions
point
in
out
total.
how worrying the results were. Quote, "The fact that
Yeah, I would be interested in seeing, like, okay, let's give them like a question that matters. You know what I mean? That's a big problem that I have, is like, okay, you're just talking about different line lengths, and one of them is clearly correct. But let's say, like, okay, is it okay to, you ask somebody, you ask the group, is sexual assault ever okay? Is sexual assault ever okay? And 5 out of the 7 people say, let's say that they're plants, and they say yes, right? And then that one plant says no, just to keep it, you know, keep people guessing. So the last person who's the real participant says, you know, I would be interested in seeing what they have to say. You know, would they agree with the group? Probably not. Like, they would probably be looking around like, what the f are you talking about? What? Sexual assault's never okay. There's no excuse for it. That would be my guess.
intelligent, well-meaning young people
That would be
are
a good
willing
one.
to call white black is a matter of concern." How does this apply to our topic? If you are active in areas that have a very leftist leaning and people
Okay, but you can make the same argument about fascism, by the way. Like, you can make the exact same argument, or about any ideology.
interact with share these same values, you are expected to adopt this narrative as well in order to not seem like an outsider. And even if you might disagree with this notion in the beginning and just parrot it without actually meaning it, over time you will come to genuinely believe in it because the environment around you demands it. You
Hello,
don't
NB
even
Family
know
background.
yourself what actually makes Trump a Nazi, but because everyone around you and in your social circle says it, you start believing it without question. And this isn't just limited to either being accepted,
Yes, I simp
but
for my
also because of the
future
fear
wife.
of the possible repercussions of what might happen if they find out that you don't actually believe in these things. Let me give you a recent example of the drama
Okay,
that
here we
happened
go.
with Vicky 1999. Well, the first one before
Finally,
the
an
whole grooming
example.
allegations. Discord server chats were leaked where Vicky was seen
I don't know
saying
anything
some
about this drama.
unfavorable things towards Palestinians and supposedly standing in support of Israel.
Oh shit. Oh shit, dude. You can't just come out and say that. Holy shit, Vicky. Christ almighty. You know why you support them? Because they're being genocided. Because we're better than conservatives. Okay? That's why we support them. All right? And being Palestinian, we support the Palestinians. Okay? We don't support the homophobic people. We don't support the people who want to throw trans people off of buildings. We don't support them. We support Palestinians. Okay? And it is not a crucial element of being Palestinian that you are also homophobic or transphobic and want to throw people off of buildings for that. Like, that's simply not the case.
And then this basically
assuming it
started
is
a
an
whole
element
public
of fascism.
lynching of Vicky because people thought
Good.
that she
She
supported
deserves it.
Israel instead of Palestine.
She deserves it.
It works like a hive mind. The moment you have your own opinions on a matter,
If you're asking that question genuinely, then I'll answer it. But if you're usually when you're asking that question, you're not asking it genuinely. You're asking it to get a rise out of people.
Like, for example, saying that not all right-wingers are fascists, you can expect that all the ties and reputation you built up can be ruined in an instant because of it. And no wonder that people can be fearful of saying what they truly think and just continue parroting the same.
If I say something really stupid, all right, like really hateful or bigoted or something, I would not only expect my audience, like as I am right now, I would not only expect my audience to leave, I would want them to. I would want them to, okay? Because I don't want them supporting me if my ideas are dog shit. That's very simple to me. I would, yeah, I'll demand it right now. If I ever go like homophobic or transphobic or, you know, even racist or whatever, then leave, and don't look back.
Same narrative.
I don't care what I say at that point. Leave and don't look back.
Observing many prominent radical ideologies and political movements that have risen to power over the years, specifically in the 20th century, we will see that one of the central components and programs by these movements was the elimination of a boogeyman. Whether it was the Jews for the Nazis or the filthy capitalists for the communists, one narrative...
This is the part where the people crying fascist are actually the real fascists, right? That's what's going on here. And also, like, the people who are hating on the Jews right now are conservatives. Like, that is unambiguously the case.
Was always clear. We, the good guys who want to help you, versus them, the bad guys who want to hurt you.
Yes.
Undoubtedly, this us versus them narrative doesn't just exist.
And guess what? If I can demonstrate that I'm helping you, then I'm not lying to you. If I can demonstrate that they're hurting you, then I'm not lying to you, okay? You know how trans people are being hurt right now? They can't access healthcare, all right? They can't get their hormones, their estrogen, or their testosterone, or their spironolactone. They can't get it because doctors now are being manipulated by the state, okay? Like they can't get their prescriptions. So that's a way that they're being hurt. Now, how do I want to help them? I want to say, well, make it so that the doctors can give them those prescriptions. Make it so that they can get the healthcare they need. I am very demonstrably the good guy. And the people trying to take that away from them are very demonstrably the bad guy. This is not that complex. The only reason you're trying to make it complex is to make you look like you're nuanced, when really you're probably just a fascist, man. Has anybody ever considered that this guy is really just a fascist? You know what a fascist tries to do? Convince you that they're not a fascist. I'm just saying.
This within radical ideologies, even in normal right-wing and left-wing circles,
calling everybody a fascist again.
I don't think that is necessarily bad. The difference is...
Hey, you know what? This guy says that he like battles with lefties or whatever. Hey, come on my show. We'll see if you're actually a fascist or not. I have plenty of questions I'd love to ask you. Get to the root of it. Why not? Let's see it.
The further radical you go, whether right or left wing, you will see that the solutions and what to do with these enemies become much more extreme, and their presence and influence is vastly more exaggerated. For propaganda reasons, it's extremely effective. While most political activists share their thoughts on how to improve the country, battle crime and so forth, they sell something that goes beyond all of that. That there is a group of people who are present and powerful and want to harm you. That they are the saviors the people can trust.
They're actually actively harming people right now as we speak. So yes, that is demonstrably true.
To break their chains and defeat this enemy. And this is exactly what a prominent organization is doing, Antifa. When Antifa was first established as a movement in the early 20th century, they had an actual understandable role to play. It was the age when fascism was on the rise in Europe, and the ideology has even started taking over entire countries. And obviously, Antifa was there to combat the rise and raise awareness about fascism. Their entire purpose, as the name suggests, was to take a stand and fight fascism.
Bro knows he'd be the first to be guillotined if he ever actually got a shred of what he actually wants. I mean, he'd be the first to be reformed in my world.
But today, as I have explained, with fascism being a relatively dead ideology with no significant political power whatsoever, what is the point of them being around in the first place? And that's exactly the point. A movement whose entire existence is centered around standing against something rather than for something will never make it in the long term.
Well, if you're standing against a very powerful force, like let's say that there's a king and I form the anti-monarchy militia. That's great because you know what? You know what we're fighting for? Freedom. You can call it the freedom militia if you want, but the anti-monarchy militia works just as well. We're fighting against the king because he's the thing keeping us from freedom.
And in order to keep their whole gist up, they had to resort to pretending that fascism is still very much a threat.
It is.
Because what's a hero without a villain?
You still, by the way, this guy still has not defined fascism. I'm just saying.
That is why they resort to calling anything right-wing as fascist in order to give their organization a reason to still exist.
Name something right-wing that's not fascist then. I would love to hear it.
Pretending and saying that fascism is on the rise and that fascists are everywhere. And leftists accepted Antifa with open arms because they are aware how much they can use them as a propaganda tool. And naturally, people going around and seeing graffiti like fascists out, kill Nazis, and generally seeing them marching the street might make them start believing that fascism is still very much around. We can actually see this in modern communists, for example. Communists believe that capitalism is the ultimate enemy.
Yeah, guess what conservatives do instead? They say kill right? Kill who's a oh, anybody I don't like is a but yeah, kill So what you're saying is, kill anybody that I don't like.
That should be destroyed. And fascism to them
at least
is
kill
nothing
Nazis
more than
is
a
pretty
branch,
specific.
a tentacle of this great demon. And yet they keep using the term fascist and not capitalist. Because, let's be honest, telling a random Jewish person that fascists are after you and your family is gonna sound
hold
much-
on, I missed something. You have to keep using the term fascist and not capitalist? Okay, capitalism is in coalition with fascism, okay? Those two are not the same thing, but they often work in tandem because the goal of capitalism is to divide and conquer, and fascism is very good at doing that. So those two work hand in hand. Just look at Elon Musk for a great example. He got the fascist brainworms, okay? Before that, he was just a capitalist. He even was like putting on a show of being left-leaning, okay? But as time went on, and the leftists got too uppity for their britches and started demanding that the rich pay their fair share, oh, now suddenly he's a fascist. Wow, isn't that interesting? That's the point.
Fascism to them is nothing more than a branch, a tentacle of this great demon.
Yeah, kill. Meanwhile, Trump exists.
And yet they keep using the term fascist and not capitalist. Because, let's be honest, telling a random Jewish person that fascists are after you and your family is gonna sound much more threatening and serious than saying capitalists are.
But it's literally true! Have you seen the current, Twitter zeitgeist? That place is crawling with fascism. This is ridiculous. When did this video come out? From 6 months ago? Yeah, no, there's no excuse for this. Twitter was already crawling with fascism 6 months ago as well.
After you.
And that's just one example.
Having this boogeyman that is
Also, I'm fairly sure that was after the whole Ye situation.
Fascism and parading it around like it's coming to kill everyone is valuable to boost their numbers and have their members and believers in this fantasy land. Now more than ever.
He's literally just running cover for fascism, by the way. He's just running cover. Okay? That's the only reason this video exists.
Since Antifa and the radical left generally started getting more and more militant in the past few years, going on this witch hunt for an enemy that is no longer a legitimate
Yeah, we don't talk about this, right? Right? Kill all right? Which is a statement, by the way, I don't stand by. But for those who do, I'm just saying, just interesting to think about.
Threat. Using this approach by calling all their critics and anyone who identifies themselves on the right as fascists, leftists are able to slander them easily, and the tactic they are using is nothing new. While not as successful, they took the strategies and approach by Joseph McCarthy and the way he handled the Red Scare and applied it for their own benefit, just crossing out communism with fascism. Because there is almost no—
Yeah, except fascists don't stand by their own shit. Communists do. For all their flaws, communists do. They say loudly and proudly, I am a communist, I am a communist, I am a communist. Look at me, look at how cool of a communist I am. I'm communist. You guys want to be communist? Let's go to the communist book club. Let's go to the communist movie showing. Let's do communist things. I love communism, right? That's communists. Fascists don't do that. They fervently deny at every point that they are fascist. They have to, okay? They have to. Communists don't have to. You know why? Because communists suck at what they do. Frankly, fascists are actually much better at what they do. do, typically.
Non-existent opposition and pushback,
Because they lie.
They were able to manipulate the term fascism and shape it in any way they saw fit.
You
Someone
still haven't defined it!
immigration, they're a fascist.
There's no definition!
They don't like leftist policies, fascist.
Okay, am I wrong? Has he at any point during this video defined what fascism actually is, besides gesturing at World War II? Has he actually sat here and given us a definition of fascism? Because I did. Rewind the VOD, or the video if you're on the YouTube video. Rewind it. At the very beginning I said it, all right? A little bit complicated, but I gave one.
And so on. By
And I think it's a
intentionally
pretty
keeping
good
the
one.
definition as vague and simple as possible, they are able to apply it to almost
He is a
anything,
pro at saying nothing.
and their followers will accept it without question. By
Uh-oh, Stark
manipulating
Tower
people's
again.
fears of fascism and the horrors that came with it,
This is the Iron Man view of Stark Tower as he ascends to go and defeat the Loki's oh, I know what he's doing. He's flying up into that portal to defeat Loki's soldiers. That's what's happening right now.
they are subconsciously
That's why we're
convincing
saying this.
people around them and their circles
allegory for
that
fascism.
is on the rise and that it is a genuine, real threat to their lives.
Also, these buildings
And
are
these
ass
people,
ugly.
despite even themselves knowing that these things said are wrong,
Listen, guys, I'm just saying, don't worry about your cock size when your lady gets one of these, okay? Your lady can get one of these from any store on the street and anymore these days, okay? Don't worry about your cock size.
still cave in due to the social pressure and the surrounding that keeps telling them these things, and eventually they adopt it as their own without fully understanding why themselves. As I have hinted, this practice and approach isn't just limited to the left.
These buildings
and
are so
fascism.
ugly.
The Red Scare is the best example of
so
this happening
ugly.
to the opposite side. But objectively,
Why are we looking at office buildings, man? Again, they just look like they have USB ports on them. It's so ass ugly.
these whole fascist shenanigans are the most prominent and
I mean, it's
influential
good
in
footage,
the West.
but God, are they
Even
ugly
if we
buildings.
say that the people advocating them are in the minority, they still have a very
You can get 'em
clear
at
and
CVS.
loud voice that makes it seem like they are everywhere and much stronger, which undoubtedly leads to more people accepting their worldview.
Yeah, good point.
Even if
We literally, during this stream, for the YouTube viewers, we had a fascist on, a former fascist, all right, who's now reformed. He clearly exists. He tried to threaten people's lives. Journalists. He had the FBI knocking down his door because he was a fascist. That happened. So clearly fascism still exists somewhere because that was not a one-off.
for the vast majority of people this is nothing more than a stupid slander strategy, we have to understand that for the people advocating them, it is very much a truth that they accept, whether subconsciously or consciously. They live in this world where fascists are all around them at every corner.
You
That they about
are!
to take
You
over and
are!
gonna become a threat to them personally.
You are!
And even if we don't see the
They're already threatening people personally. Like I said, they're already making laws. Look, women can't get abortions. Like, that's insane. People can't get abortions, man. That's a tenet of fascism. All right? Talking about the Great Replacement, fascism. All right? People coming in across the border are not soldiers. They're not armed. They're just here to build a better life for themselves. All right? This is not a replacement. And if you say that it is one, then you're fascist.
world as black and white
And
as
people
they
are saying that right now.
It's
So
honestly
fascists
quite
must
sad to
exist.
see how they are being influenced to think this way, just as
It's
if
not
they
that
were
hard.
in a cult. There are genuinely people among
yeah, we're
them
the ones in a
who
cult.
would put their life
True.
on the line to say that Trump is a fascist. To me,
He is!
this is honestly just a depressing way to view the world and your surroundings, through these black and white
Oh, yes.
lenses, that there
In reality, where we live here, in reality, that's depressing. It is depressing. You know what? Agreed. Very good. Very good. Reality is depressing. You know why? Because people like your sorry ass are in it.
is only fascism and anti-fascism. And for these people, I can feel nothing but pity.
Totally, dude. Yeah, what's Project 2025 anyway? But yeah, very silly video. It was a fun react though. I always love reacting to these. Hey, Lavender, the offer stands. If you would like to come on and debate that, I'm open to it. If you watch this, feel free. Hit me up in the Discord DMs, email. You can see my email on my channel page. All my links are in the description, so you can find me on Discord there. Up to you, man. Up to you. Personally, I believe in freedom of speech, so you can come onto my platform and talk about why you're definitely not a fascist, and fascism definitely doesn't exist, and you're definitely not running cover for fascists. Yeah, I would love to hear it, so hit me up, man. We'll have a good talk. We'll have a good talk.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more, hit the notification bell to be notified when I upload. If you enjoy my content, you enjoy what I do, I really appreciate any financial help that I can get. Go to youtube.com/AlecGunterTTV/join. You got some awesome benefits, such as seeing early videos, awesome emotes that you can use in the comments of YouTube videos, and a sweet badge next to your name. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'd really appreciate if you join. It is cheaper than the cost of a blowjob from your mom. So with all that being said, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.